Welcome back to another book highlight. We are now at chapter 20 of My Rival the King, and chapter 20 is one of Jonathan's chapters. And this is the point where things are starting to really unravel for Jonathan. They're starting to not spiritually, but emotionally and just with circumstances, things are starting to get really intense for him. And just when you thought things couldn't get any more intense for this prince, who has such a hard road to walk, and yet he's so faithful to the Lord through all of it. But there's actually something very beautiful that we can learn from this painful place that he is in. In chapter 20, Jonathan is starting to prepare for this big battle with the Philistines, and they're outnumbered. According to scripture, at this point, Saul was not receiving any word from the Lord, any help through dreams or visions or instruction from the priests. They just weren't receiving any help at this point because of Saul's continued rebellion. And in my book, at this point, Jonathan is still protected a little bit from the full reality of it, because he's still not sure if this is the battle where he's going to die with his father. But he's starting to think that it's very possible that this could be it. And he's feeling very unwound and feeling the need to prepare his little son and his son's nurse for the possibility that they might have to flee if the Philistines win the initial battle, and if this war goes on longer than typically. So he is dealing with this. He doesn't want to leave his son. He doesn't want this to be it. But he has some prophecies that indicate that, he and his father are not going to live to see David crowned, and he's starting to wonder if this is it. So this is a very desperate place for Jonathan, and if you've read the book up to this point, you know how he's feeling at this time, and I don't think that's too much of a stretch to imagine that he was feeling that way. And maybe some of you have been in that place. I mean, very few of us in America have faced, except perhaps our armed forces, have faced death at the hands of an enemy. But maybe some of us have faced other things, other intense, really desperate moments. And where we are in this chapter, what we can learn from it is, in that desperate place, it is very, very easy to get discouraged and feel like our whole life has been a waste, or our faith has been a waste, or we've done something wrong, or God has rejected us. And that's exactly what the enemy wants you to do with those desperate moments. Because as Christians, we know that we're going to go through trouble, and we've read the stories about the persecuted church and about Paul and even Jesus, and we know that. But we still think, okay, yeah, but if I do the right thing, I'm going to be rewarded. God is going to, rescue me. We're told to fight from victory, not for it, because it's already been won for us. But that doesn't mean that doing the right thing is always going to earn you an immediate fleshly reward in this earth. There are times that you're going to do the right thing, and it's not going to lead to the giant Goliath falling right in front of you. We like to cling to those stories, and we assume that God is going to do it exactly the same way every time. But sometimes, when we're moving towards something that seems like a disaster, and we're thinking, why is God not rescuing me? I'm doing the right thing. What is not adding up here? You could be doing the right thing, but that doesn't automatically mean that God is going to just rescue you from the situation. He required Jesus to go to the cross. Paul was martyred. Corrie ten Boom was a great woman of faith during the Holocaust. She went to the concentration camps and saw her sister die, and she was the one that said, when it gets dark, you don't jump off the train because you're in a tunnel. You trust the engineer. And so what we can learn from this chapter, there's a line in the beginning of the chapter where Jonathan says everything that he's been hoping for, because that our minds tend to cling to hope and try to figure out what God is going to do to rescue us. And it's okay to have ideas and to pray for certain things. But reality, the line in the book says, reality is always more complicated. So it doesn't mean that it's bigger than God, but it's just more complicated than we tend to think. So what do you do when reality is more complicated and you're doing the right thing, but you don't see God rescuing you? This is where raw obedience comes into play. This is where you just have to say, you know what, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, even if God does not rescue me physically, even if my worst nightmare comes to pass, I am still going to cling to the Lord, because it's not just about what I get out of it. It's about the ultimate reward and the fact that the right thing is the right thing and God is worthy, and the only safe and secure place is in Him. So we need to stand, and you can practice now when things are not in that intense, desperate place. We need to learn to stand. Hide the promises of God in your heart so that you will be built up for those times when the enemy is screaming at you that your life has been a waste and your faith and obedience have not earned you anything. It is still the right thing to do, to pursue God and do the next right thing, even if there's not immediate rescue. And there's actually, it sounds very scary, and it is, it's painful, but there's actually a great deal of relief that comes from that, to know that you have made the right decision. And even if you're not rewarded immediately here, you can choose deliberate peace, and you will be rewarded ultimately, because the blessing of the Lord is promised for those who fear Him.